Welcome to midweek reflections from St. Paul Lutheran Church. Today is March 24th, 2021. The Holy Gospel according to Mark, the 4th chapter, verses 35 to 41. Glory to you, O Lord. Well, on that day, when evening had come, Jesus said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. A great gale arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. That day started off just fine for those disciples. They were on the Sea of Galilee. Right, most of these guys were fishermen before Jesus called them. So this was like going back home for them. This was their comfort spot. This is where things felt normal and familiar. This is where all seemed right with the world. Right? They were back in the boat. They could smell the fish. The sea was as calm as glass. This is how the world should be. But then things changed. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. Now, because these guys were fishermen, they were familiar with life on the sea, including being caught in storms. So this was nothing new for them. But this particular storm was different. They thought they were going to die. This storm is unlike anything they have seen or experienced before. And to make matters worse, Jesus is asleep. As the text says, but Jesus was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" In a time when they really needed Jesus, he was sound asleep. The psalmist knows this situation too. Whether or not the disciples' words are meant this way, I can't help but hear an echo of Psalm 44. "Rouse yourself. Why do you sleep, O Lord? Awake, do not cast us off forever. Why do you hide your face? Why do you forget our affliction and oppression? For we sink down to the dust. Our bodies cling to the ground. Rise up, come to our help. Redeem us for the sake of your steadfast love." Right, in that psalm, the psalmist begins by praising God for all the wonderful things God has done in the past. But then the psalmist talks about all of the calamities that have come upon them now. They've remained faithful to God, but it seems like God is asleep. It seems like this one who was faithful in the past has forgotten to be faithful now. This is how the disciples in the boat were feeling. They knew that Jesus had already done incredible things for them already. So why is he asleep when it seems like they're going to die? We know that feeling too. We know what it feels like to have life be going pretty well, and then this storm of a pandemic hits us. Yes, we've all been through storms and troubles in life before, but this is unlike anything we've seen or experienced before. And even though we've been faithful to God, it seems like God is silent. Has God fallen asleep on the job? Is God paying no attention to us? All right, this pandemic has shaken the faith of a lot of people. It's affected how people see God's involvement in the world, how they participate or don't participate in worship. It's changed how they see the role of the church to be. And maybe we want to shout, "Wake up! Do you not care that we're dying here?" But then, of course, the story goes on. Jesus gets up, tells the wind and the waves to shut up, and they do. Then he says, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" The story seemed believable and relatable to us right until that point. Because we don't have Jesus speaking a word and making the storms in life go away. Or do we? The fascinating thing that always jumps out to me in this story is that we get very little description about the storm on the water. All we hear is that the boat was already being swarmed. The emphasis is really on the terror that the disciples were feeling and how they think that Jesus doesn't care about them. So when Jesus tells the storm to stop, he's not just telling the waves to settle down. He's telling the disciples to settle down too. He is calming the storm inside of them as well as the storm around them. Sometimes that internal storm feels stronger than the external storm. Right? In other words, this pandemic has been happening to all of us. But some people seem to be less anxious about it than others. Why? Because they have heard Jesus speak to them and calm the waves in their heart. Listen again to Jesus' words here. Peace, be still. Or, very similar to words from another psalm, Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth. Sometimes it feels like all hope is lost when we are going through some major storm in life. but Jesus is still here with us. He is still speaking his words of peace to us. He is still reminding us that he is stronger than any storm we face. So as we continue to sail through the storm of this pandemic, we see that Jesus is right here in the boat with us. And he gives us the calm, the peace, and the hope we need to make it through. Even in a pandemic, God is still our hope.